Hello, everyone. All right. I wanted to talk today about self-abandonment because it was in alignment to what I was talking about earlier about self-compassion. And I touched upon it a little bit. But I really want to dive deep into this topic because I feel this was the key for my inner peace work. Because I was doing this so unconsciously, I didn't have the words for it. I didn't have the words. I had no idea what this was. If you watched my earlier video, after I did the Course in Miracles workbooks, I had this dream about my mom yelling at me, and then later actually my dad, and then there was a second dream, and the first dream of my mom yelling at me, and I clenched my fist out, I said, I will never abandon myself, I'll never abandon myself. And then the second dream I had, it was very similar, except for my dad was doing it, but this time I didn't feel any emotion, right? I knew something had shifted inside of me. And I want to speak to those that deal with self-abandonment or maybe don't understand what it really is. But for me, what self-abandonment is if there's negative emotion or a negative experience, a challenge, and instead of going with yourself and supporting yourself, you're like, okay, how can we get through this? It's you put this negative narrative like something's wrong with me, I'm broken, why is this happening to me? This is a form of self-abandonment where you kick yourself off your own team. You're like, oh, Cahir is the worst, I don't like Cahir, this is Cahir's fault. And you know, in the spiritual perspective, like from the Holy Spirit's perspective, this is insanity, right? Why I say insanity? It's because, you know, life is going to be full of challenges, right? But you can make it way harder for yourself, or you could, you know, accept it and work with yourself. And I was doing this so unconsciously. I had no idea I was doing this. I had no words that such a concept existed as self-abandonment. But you know, this is something with people with CPTSD deal with. That this is just a learned behavior, right? Because we couldn't get what we wanted from our caretakers, so we learned to self-abandon, and it carries into adulthood. Right? I just had no idea I was doing this to myself, and I was causing myself a lot of unnecessary suffering. And this is also part of my healing journey as well, to help others that maybe didn't have the words and they're doing this unconscious behavior, but now I'm giving the words. This is self-abandonment, and the healing key is to make a vow, which I did, just like what a paladin and a champion does. They make a vow, I will never abandon myself again. Never, ever, ever. Even if I'm facing a challenge, what benefit is it for me to throw myself off my team and call myself these names, loathe myself, berate myself? I understand why I did it, right? Because I had this belief that if I'm going to be nice to myself, that I'll be lazy, I'll give up, something along the lines of that. It's you know, shame based. That, oh, I need to keep myself in line or something like that. But if you believe in that and you do that, that means you're believing that something's fundamentally wrong with you. You have to police yourself instead of, you know, taking care of yourself, guiding yourself. What in the psychological spheres they call it like reparenting, right? I put it more like balancing divine masculine, divine feminine. For me, divine masculine is showing up for yourself, doing the things you know that you really want to do, even if they don't feel the best in the moment, like exercising. Yeah, so there's like that balance between those two. But self-abandonment is just going to make everything 10 times harder. You're not going to do what you say you want to do or you feel like you should do. You'll probably have some negative coping mechanism. All right, let me tell you what self-abandonment led to. So for me, it created this toxic inner critic that was made from shame, guilt, I call him like this wounded warrior, this like drill instructor in my head. You know, all it came from was my critical parents, right? Because even a small mistake was yelled at, screamed at, and I just had this big fear of making mistakes, right? And it's a paradox because if we're going to try something new, we're not going to be good at it right away, right? We're going to make mistakes. But if we're afraid of making mistakes, we're not going to try new things and we're not going to improve. You know, this is like this cycle, right? And even if I did do some nice things, I couldn't really honor my own achievements. I just never felt good enough, right? This is something I had to deal with, just feeling like a loser, like all the time. Even when people would be like, why, you know, you're like, you know, things are, you know, you're like a good-looking guy. Which I did receive compliments about my appearance, not to say this out of like arrogance. It's just like, you know, from my experience, you know, like, oh, you know, you're a good-looking guy, you're young, you should be smiling all the time. It should be inauthentic to what you're actually feeling, you know. And what this self-abandonment did to me was I'd actually self-sabotage, right? Because the guilt and the pain was so much, I had this freeze response, which would make me like disassociate. I would feel like being outside of my body and I would binge eat. I had like these Reese's Puffs in my house and I would just overeat so much. I think I had a very unhealthy relationship with food because it was my soother. This is also what CPTSD is talk about that. That's one of the first coping mechanisms is food, right? Because it's our first way of getting external comfort. And you know, we went to like buffets a lot and learned to stuff ourselves, you know, all that stuff. But also our dopamine addiction in general, right? Scrolling on my phone and just to numb myself to the pain I was feeling, because I had no idea you could soothe yourself in a you know, more holistic way, right? So the thing to get out of this self-abandonment was, one, yes, making this vow to yourself. If you have to write it down, write it down. For me, it was just in the dream world and just being more vigilant of where I was abandoning myself. This is the thing, because in some aspects of my life, I still believed, oh, it serves me, right? It serves me to shame myself, but it'll never serve you, right? That's the illusion. Like, if you believe in it, it'll keep perpetuating itself. But this was my body. When I let go of that toxic shame, that guilt, the way I was abandoning myself through overeating. Of course, what happened? I lost weight relatively quickly because I wasn't sabotaging myself, right? Right, and this is, I wrote down light of Holy Spirit work versus the shadow, right? Oh, so more about like empowering and disempowering voice, right? Just, if you know this Native American tale about there's like two wolves inside of you, the good wolf and the bad wolf. It's oversimplification, but like there's the empowering voice and the disempowering voice. Which one will win is the one that you feed. And this is the constant nourishment, being aware, which wolf am I feeding? The empowering one or the disempowering one, right? Because if you're on your team, if you don't self-abandon, you support yourself, it's just natural, of course, you're going to go to the empowering narrative, because what other choice is there, right? I just want to remind you, whatever your challenges are, they matter, right? Because this is something I had to deal with. That I thought, oh, people have it so much worse than me. There's starving kids in Africa. Oh, there's people like in coal mines. You know, their challenges are their challenges. Your challenges are your challenges, right? Like, do not, don't discredit them, but don't let them anchor you down, right? Because when we reframe the challenges, like, I don't even like to say the word problem, just more challenges, right? Because once you overcome a challenge, it gets stronger, right? Just like lifting weights at the gym, right? Because that's a more empowering narrative. Instead of saying, oh, I have this challenge, it defines me. Like, oh, I have this challenge, how can it serve me? Right? That's the empowering voice, right? I'll give you guys an example of my life when it comes to rejection, right? A lot of guys have to deal with, being quote unquote rejected by girls. And this is so crazy. I was talking to my brother about this with the Kaizen philosophy, which is a philosophy of small steps. And in the book, it said, you're not really afraid of rejection. You're afraid of the story that you're going to tell yourself, right? How many people have gone through this that you feel, oh, if you ask a girl out and she rejects you, it's like, I know I was not worthy of it. I'm so bad with girls. All right, all this. That's self-abandonment, right? That's a disempowering narrative you're telling yourself, right? You can believe it's true. Yes, I believed it for many years, but how is that going to serve you? Or it could be empowering narrative. You know what? I'm so glad I tried. I'm so, like, the champion consciousness. I'm so glad I tried. I did my best. Let's go to the next one. I'm sure I'll find the right girl for me. That's the voice that keeps you going. That's the one that keeps you into the game, right? The disempowering one was just like, oh, I'm so bad. I'll never do it. How are you going to, even improve yourself, like in the form, getting new clothes or whatever, going to the gym, which is great stuff too. But if you keep telling yourself that story, you won't do it, right? Because that's what happened to me, right? It's the same event, girl says no, but it's the story that you tell yourself. That's what you're actually afraid of. Okay. It's the same with what I wanted to say about my story about when someone makes fun of you, all right, tries to belittle you. So if you guys don't know, so I'm Polish American, and I moved to Poland when I was 19. I didn't speak any Polish. That's another story for another day, but I always felt I was Polish. Ever since I was young, I said I'm Polish, and but I was extremely insecure, especially in social situations. I'm working on it. It's a lot better than what it used to be. But there's this one story I want to tell. I had to take some extracurricular activity for university, and I took this weightlifting class. And this girl caught my eye. I wanted to talk to her, and after class I talked to her, and maybe she heard my accent or how I wasn't like so sure of myself speaking Polish, and she's like, oh, nie mówisz po polsku. You don't speak Polish. And she's like, oh, I don't speak English, but it's like total projection. I've noticed that people that aren't good with languages or I don't speak English, they're the ones that attack my Polish first. It's all projection, right? It's all her stuff. It had nothing to do with me. That's what I believe in. But I told this story, this disempowering story, like, oh, my Polish is so bad. Oh, she said I don't nie mówię po polsku. Oh, and it was very disheartening, but I let it be disheartening instead of saying, oh, she probably is projecting onto me about her English level. I'm not going to let it define me. I'm going to keep working on my Polish because I know myself. I believe in myself. You know what I mean? But if we, when I bought into that story, it was, very disheartening, right? Also, I didn't have compassion for myself to say, oh, what an awful thing to say to somebody, I just I took it, right? Because this is what I was raised in to take, to tolerate bullshit, right? But now I'm like, no way, I love myself way too much. Like, to me, that's just showing me, oh, this is the type of person you are. Thank goodness I didn't want to ask you on a date because I saw like what kind of person you are. End of story. You know what I mean? And we came to self-reliance. Okay, agency. Yes, this is what when you have the self-empowering narrative, and you're always going to be on your team. You're always going to support yourself no matter what you do. And then it just becomes easier to do things, right? To show up for yourself. It just becomes easier, right? It doesn't really take that much willpower anymore because, you support yourself. Because I had this belief, I have to berate myself or else I'll fail, right? And that's such a stressful heaviness to it, I have to berate myself or else I'll fail. I have to have the whip or else what's going to happen, right? But when you say that stuff, you're agreeing to the self-concept that something's fundamentally wrong with me, right? Because I believed, like, when my parents would call me, like, ayopa, idiot, sierota, like orphan, these name calling. I just believed it about myself, that I was this lower version of myself. I can't do anything right. Right? If you can't do anything right, but if I can do stuff right, but I have to berate myself to keep myself in line. Right? And you can imagine how stressful and how painful of an existence it was. But I just thought that's how life is, right? Until the Course in Miracles. Because the Course in Miracles teaches us, I am like the work of God, wholly lovable, just like Him, right? So now just remember, it's always a choice, right? It's always a choice to abandon or to be on your own team, to stick with the Holy Spirit, right? This is the thing, right? We're here, we're on this earth, we want to do things, right? But can you enjoy the journey, right? The journey is the destination, right? So long I was like, I want to achieve this thing. Until I achieve this thing, I'm going to be off my team. I'm going to shame myself until I'm going to be this perfect version of myself. No, man. The journey is the destination, right? I wanted to be 76 kilograms, and the longest time I'm like, oh, you're so, you're overweight, you're fat. Or, oh, I can't believe you look like this. Oh, you're overweight again. Does that sound like an enjoyable journey to you? No. Because I think, so I don't know where I learned this, but I just learned, it's all about the action you take. Action, action, action. I'm saying, okay, action is still important, right? But it's 20% of your journey. 80% is the energy work, the mental energy. Really, because this is what worked for me. Because when I did the energy work on my body, I let go of this pressure. The weight just came off. It was effortless. It was like breathing, like exercising. Everything just became effortless. Right before that, it was just like pushing a boulder up a mountain with so much resistance. Right, but once we reframe, we have this new positive, empowering narrative that's more in alignment to who we really are, and this champion consciousness. I'll give you an example. Right, when I was in university, I had to pick because in Poland for some reason you can't take. So I didn't want to, but this is a long story. But I chose to study English teaching because I wanted to be an English teacher. But you have to take a second speciality, and I had a choice between history, German, or French. I chose French because I learned it in high school, and I was like, oh, I could learn French finally. Whoop, big mistake. Long story short, let's say bad teachers, also Friday evenings, not the best environment to learn language. And there's a lot of shame that I failed. I failed twice. I had to retake French. I've never retaken a class before. But honestly, I thought, guys, it was impossible. I thought I'm bad at learning languages. I'll never learn this language. Everything's, it's like really, I really felt like, man, I'll have to probably drop out because I can't do this. But then when I reframed it and said, no, all things are possible with God. All things are possible with God. That's what the Course in Miracles teaches us. I'm going to reframe this narrative that I can. And what can I do? Right? And I had this fire in my belly. I did the things that you could say, quote unquote, should, but it didn't feel that resistance. I found great teachers on italki, private, one-on-one. This great guy, many years ago, so I don't remember his name, but still, great teacher, very encouraging, happy, and I passed. And I can't tell you guys the relief I felt after 2 years of struggle, honestly believing there's no way for me. And there's other factors as well. It was during COVID and the tests were online, and I think it made it easier. But there still exists a reality where I failed. Right? I could have still failed if I didn't put the work in. Right? And yes, the 20% was necessary, like investing the time, energy into italki, the things. But I wasn't doing it because I had such a disempowering narrative. You see where I'm coming from? And so we don't do the 80% of the energy work, the mental energy work, the mind training, then you're just going to be spinning your wheels, right? Because I tried studying before, but since I had such a self-abandonment way of thinking, this disempowering narrative, it felt like, I don't know, sandpaper on my skin. It was just. But when I had this empowering narrative and the fire in my belly was there, and I was like, yes, I could do it. I know I will achieve it. Do you feel the difference? And I want to explore this in all avenues of my life, right? To drop this disempowering narrative drop the self-abandonment, and always be on my own team. Because, yes, with the disempowering, I'm going to share this story. Because, like, when I first failed French, I came back home to the States. You know, the first thing my mom said when we went home? She's like, I'm so disappointed in you that you failed French. Thank you so much. You understand how that's self-abandonment right there? It's you know, and that's the voice I had in myself. I'm so disappointed in you, Cahir. Oh, do you, like, just even saying it now, like the heaviness, do you think that is going to motivate you to take action? No way. No way. It's the opposite, right? You got to be on your own team. Be like, it's okay. Take a breath. We're here. We failed. Our world hasn't ended. We can do it. And I know there's so many of you that had to deal with something like that or worse. And I'm just telling you, you have what it takes. You have to do the inner work first. Do the inner work first, and the 20%, the action, the physical world will take care of itself, guys. It's worked for me. So I think also the reason why I would value the disempowering voice, because I was also told it's naive to think positively. Well, I think it's naive to think negatively. Think about how many negative thoughts you had, these fear-based worry thoughts, and it didn't happen, right? So you have the same amount of chance of the bad thing happening as the good thing is happening. So why wouldn't you just think good? Why wouldn't you just think positive? Of course, it's not about putting your head in the sand or whatever. But you know what I mean? It's about the narrative we're telling ourselves, right? So when you see there's a choice that actually the empowering narrative serves you like 100 times better than the disempowering narrative, why would you choose it? All right, what the Course teaches, like, you know, you're aware of the ego's thought system or the Holy Spirit's thought system, which is basically the whole thing, empowering, disempowering. So why wouldn't you choose the empowering narrative, right? And find yourself believing in this empowering narrative, have compassion for yourself, infinite compassion beyond human measure, and say, oh, I'm buying into the disempowering narrative. I'm curious, why is that? What can I do? Where did this come from? And heal it, and then install the empowering belief. Listen, I believe in you guys. But it doesn't matter if I believe in you. You have to believe in yourself. Right? It can be a platitude, or it can be your lifestyle. Right? Because what choice do you have? Right? To be off your team? I'm going to give a game analogy. It's like playing Death Stranding offline. Sure, you can do it if you want. You'll make the game 10 times harder for yourself. But why? Right? Like when you play Death Stranding online with other players, they build bridges, they give you ladders, you know, helping each other out. It's the same concept, right? You make the journey so much easier and it's so much more enjoyable, right? And that's what I want for myself and I want for you guys. You know, enjoy the journey, man. All right, I think that's it for what I had on my mind. All right, take care, guys.